Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Now we got to get serious because Joe KARP is a serious kind of guy because he does a lot of serious stuff. He's an elder law attorney, one of the very first here in South Florida. Joe always is the best at what he does, and long before there was even elder law attorneys, that were certified, board certified. People didn't even know that you could be a board certified elder law attorney, but that's what Joe did. And he writes, he's been probably our longest columnist in Boomer Times, and he's been on the radio for so many years. And we just love having him. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. I guess I am certainly probably not only the longest, but I'm probably the only one who wrote for Senior Life before.
Oh, that's right.
So I have written for every Boomer Times issue that has ever been issued.
You're right. It started as Senior Life, then it was Senior Life and Boomer Times, and then it went to Boomer Times and Senior Life, and now we call it Boomer Times. So you're right. Well, you're just a wonderful fan.
I've been there a long time. Well, I'm a big fan of Boomer Times and its predecessors in interest, and of course of you, ANITA.
Thank you. But Joe, really, that's what's made Boomer Times important. They could count on reading the most important information from our experts. And you, of course, have always been such a great expert on elder law and what people seriously have to know. And so many, we hear this all the time. I didn't know that. I didn't know this. Look what happened to me. And if you would only take the time, read Joe's articles, go to his seminars, really understand that in your life, you need an excellent elder law attorney. That's what I keep telling people. I know you do too, don't you?
I did. Last night I went to a friend of mine's office holiday party. It was a very nice party. It was at the Capitol Grill in Boca. And I was sitting next to a man and a woman who were very pleasant, very nice. They both are knowledgeable and professionals. And she was talking to me that her dad is now 93 and he's failing and what's going on. And I started talking and I said, first of all, I always talk about people and their dynamics, and you get the handle on which child is helping and where the resentments are. And I'm very honest. I said, usually there's one child who ends up doing most of it and is resentful sometimes of the siblings' unwillingness to help. But if they ever try to step in, she'd say, I'm the boss. Will you get out of my territory? And they were laughing because it looked like that was the dynamic in their family, because the husband almost spit out his glass of wine when I said that. And then I said, the dad is significantly older than the mom. And I said, but it's a first marriage of long-term duration. And I said, the real problem is if what you're telling me is it sounds like dad does need or is going to need a nursing home, but mom's totally resistant because that's just not her picture of life, and that's not the deal she made with herself. And we started talking about that, and I said, and the other thing is she's probably scared of the economics. And she said, you bet. And I said, well, do you know that under Florida law that assuming we're not playing, I said, I assume dad doesn't have any IRAs at 93. And she said, no. I said, do you know all of his money can be switched to her? And it's not, they're not millionaires. These are middle people. They maybe have a house in about $500,000, which is a lot of money, except if you're going into a nursing home. I said, do you know all the money can be switched to her? And there's ways that he can, with full disclosure, he can get Medicaid if he goes into a nursing home. She can have that money to live off of and not worry. I said, so sometimes, when your the moms of the world say he can't go into a nursing home, part of it is the typical true emotion, not my husband, blah, blah, blah. And the other is, I can't afford to put him in a nursing home. I'm better off killing myself caring for him.
Oh.
She said, I met with an elder law attorney at a function 3 days ago, and we were discussing. She never said anything about that. And I said, well, there's a lot of things people don't know about Medicaid and elder law issues that make them make very uneducated decisions. I wouldn't call them bad because the decisions you make should be educated. There's no right or wrong when you're deciding, except if it's wrong if you're deciding based upon facts and laws that you don't know exist. And she said, and I'm not a card pusher, can I have your card? And I said, sure, but so you're right. People just don't know so many things, and they make certain assumptions because this is what happened to my sister in New Jersey, and this is what happened to my neighbor across the street. And I'll have people come into me and say, my neighbor's getting veterans benefits. How can I get it? And then I explain that I don't know their neighbor, but here's how you can get it and not. And you don't always know the facts about your neighbor's finances, your neighbor's medical expenses. You just don't know. So I said, you have to go to somebody who can evaluate you, not based upon what you hear from neighbors, not from what happened to family members, and not what you read in the newspaper. I'm an advocate of newspapers. I read 2 every day. I have the New York Times and the Palm Beach Post in front of me, and before I go out, I have a meeting with clients this morning. I will go through the New York Times page by page, but not all of the things you read give you the in-depth understanding. So they say there's a 5-year penalty for Medicaid transfers. To get Medicaid, well, there's a 5-year look back, number one. It's not a penalty. So sometimes they say a 5-year look back. 2, not every transfer creates a penalty. There are different rules. So I'm not calling it fake news. I'm calling it news that doesn't give you enough information in detail. It just covers the overview. There's a death penalty for murder. Does that mean everybody who commits a murder is going to get the death penalty? No. So you have to go depth information to find out what's going on. That's what we try to do to help people.
Well, the other thing, too, and it's one thing for you to write a column and to be on the radio, but you have worked very hard at your seminars. I mean, I don't know of anybody that's done seminars as long as you have and has been so consistent, and I'm sure that so many people have benefited from those seminars, whether they go and see you afterwards or just from what they learned from them.
Absolutely. And by the way, there's a movement in my office headed by my wife.
Yeah.
That stop doing the seminars. Stop doing the seminars. Because when I first started doing seminars, candidly, that's how I generated my clientele and the interest in my firm.
Sure.
Now, fortunately, by word of mouth, by reputation of the firm, by my writing for Boomer Times and things like that, we get significant contact from people who have never been to my seminars. And those people, so when we talk about my coming up seminars, that call up if they want a Medicaid consultation, they end up paying for it. And they're glad to do it because they walk out with enough information that they got their money's worth.
But you're not...
Had they come to the seminar, they would have gotten it for free. So heads up warning, I don't know how long these will last.
Okay.
And I've been doing them for 25 years.
That's true, you have. So let me tell everybody, at least we know there's going to be one in January. So let me at least tell everybody.
We never back out of a commitment that we make.
Right. So let me tell everybody. So just get your pencils out. Remember, I always say this is Pencil Talk Radio because you're going to hear a lot of things, and get that pencil so you can write it down. Otherwise, you'll never get to where you're going. You'll never remember. So let's start with Tuesday, January the 8th from 1:30 to 4 at Palm Beach Gardens Marriott. Now, these are beautiful places that Joe chooses. It's very, very nice. You will be there from 1:30 to 4. It's worth your doing it. Then if you can't do that on Tuesday, Wednesday, January the 9th from 1:30 to 4. You can go to the Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton Beach. So he's trying to get all throughout South Florida. And then Thursday, January the 10th, 1:30 to 4, Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. Now, let me just say that the Holiday Inn up there is very, very nice, and you get a chance to see, even if you live down here, go up there because there's a lot happening in Port St. Lucie. Now, if you want to just get on Joe's website, go to karplaw.com. That's KARPLAW.com, because you'll learn so much. He has a blog. He has lots of things going. And if you want information, just call his phone number at 1-800 893-9911. 1-800-893-9911. Joe, do you still have Boomer Times up there? So if people want to stop in,
yeah.
Okay,
we
they
have
can
it
pick
in
it
our
up.
office, and they have it at Joseph's, I believe.
Yes.
I've seen it in a few places. And what I want to tell the listeners is every one of those locations, we have an office in Port St. Lucie, Palm Beach Gardens, and Boynton Beach. So we just don't go on a fishing expedition and expect you to have to drive more than – we have a concept called standard schlepping distance. How far will somebody come? So you don't want to – so I don't do for those of you in Broward, because I get calls frequently after this saying, well, why don't you do a seminar in Plantation or Tamarack? You'll fill the house. And there's a reality. Not enough people from Tamarack would actually drive to the closest office that I have, which is Boynton Beach. And as a result, it's not productive. And so if they want to come to the seminar, they get an opportunity. And one of the things we should remind people, we talk about traditional estate planning. We talk about Medicaid and VA benefits for long-term care. And people who attend the seminar are offered a free consultation with one of the lawyers at the KARP law firm if we think we can help you. And you say, well, what? That sounds tricky. Well, if you live in New Jersey, we can't help you. Neither could Chris Christie, but that was a separate issue. So we can't. There are some people we can't help, or we discover that they want to come in for something that's unrelated to what we do. But for most people, we can help them, and they get an opportunity for a free consultation. Now, for anybody who doesn't want to go to the seminar, you can have a paid-for consultation and call up, and we will charge you $500 to meet for 1 hour. So now you don't have to come. We'll gladly take the call, but we think it's a more effective use of our time and your time if you come to the seminars. We don't take reservations, and we start on time. And unfortunately, I rarely finish on time because I always have answers to questions and things that strike my mind or changes in the law that take place 2 days before. So, and for those of you who have been to my seminars in the past, the VA laws have all changed since October 18th. So if you heard me talk about VA and I said there's no penalty for transfers if you're going to apply for VA benefits for pension with aid and attendance, that's no longer the law. So these are all moving targets. So we get some seminar groupies, and I mean that in the best sense. People who come every year or two, many are not ready to pull the trigger. But it's interesting how many people, even that come to a seminar. I probably get in my office now. Most of them don't see me. There's 5 lawyers, so most people don't see me. I probably get 10 people a month that come into my office that went to my seminar 5 years ago or longer and didn't retain us. They call up. They're not even going to the seminar now. They say, saw your seminar 7 years ago. I'm ready to come in. And we keep good records, so we know when they come in. Sometimes they don't say that. And I'll turn to them and I'll say, it's about time. And they'll say, what? And I'll say, well, February 14th, 2007, you went to our seminar at the Boynton Beach And it wasn't the Courtyard Inn back then, it was the Holiday Inn. And I said, how do you know that? I said, well, our job is to keep good records, so not only so we can help our clients. So when their families call up after somebody gets sick or disabled, or our client calls up, we know a lot of things that have gone on. We know whether their daughter was going through a divorce. We know that stuff so that we can be there for the relationship we think is necessary for estate planning. Estate planning isn't hit and miss, goodbye, and I'm done with you. Estate planning is things are going to change. I'm going to get older. Somebody's going to get sick. Somebody's going to get divorced. Somebody's not going to be speaking to somebody. Somebody's spouse is going to have a health issue that they can no longer help you. Your daughter moves to California, and you thought she could be conveniently helping you because she lived in Coral Gables, and all of a sudden she's no longer available. So we keep good records of people that we see or even meet and hear from so that we have that information.
So let me jump in here, Joe, because I want everyone to know that the December issue is out, and Joe's column is very important as usual, but I wanted to just give you a chance to maybe talk about it a little bit. Will you lose your house if you get Medicaid benefits for nursing home care? That was quite an article because I didn't know people really thought they lost their house.
Tons of people do. First of all, you got to understand, people who come from most other states, now you're a Floridian, okay? You're a Floridian. But in New York, eventually your house goes to the state if you've been on Medicaid, if it's just you. In New Jersey, same thing. So there are many states. Now, there are things that people can do in those states to avoid it. But in Florida, your house is an exempt asset for Medicaid under certain standards. Number one, and you could be a single person in the nursing home, and your home can be empty. So it's not just if your spouse is living there. The home can be empty, and the home it is an exempt asset for Medicaid as long as the equity in the home is less than $572,000. That's the equity, not the value. You intend to return to the home. And that doesn't mean you can, you will, it's even feasible. I mean, I've done this with people who have been effectively comatose, and they have done nothing to show they don't intend to return to the home. They haven't rented it out, it's presumed that everybody wants to go home. So that's there. And then as long as and then you can, after you die, you can leave it to your family members without Medicaid having any recovery. Now, if you transfer it to your child, you put your kid on the deed, or you give it outright to joint with you, or give it outright, now you've made a gift of an asset that would have been exempt. So that's a separate, then you've lost that, then you've made yourself ineligible for Medicaid for a period of time. The other thing people sometimes do is they don't plan for that. They say, oh, well, the house is exempt, I don't have to worry. Well, many of your children don't have the ability to maintain it and sustain it economically. So they can't pay the property tax. They can't pay the electric so the place doesn't turn mildew and moldy. They can't pay the homeowner's insurance. So there are steps that should be taken to preserve assets sufficiently in advance, or giving people the ability to do that if you end up in a nursing home, so they don't have to lose the house, because frequently somebody will come in, they hadn't met with me, they hadn't been my clients, and all of a sudden this becomes an issue. And you turn to the kids who come in, they say, well, we understand, we heard the house is exempt, that's a good thing. I say, yeah, that's true, but Now, how are you going to pay the HOA fees or the condo fees and the property tax? And they said, well, we thought the house is exempt. I said, yeah, but your parent, who's now in the nursing home, can keep $115 a month for expenses. That ain't going to cover it, is it? And they said, well, we don't have that kind of money. It's going to cost $700 a month. We're raising families. We've got our own, and we can't afford to maintain it. And I said, well, okay, now we got to go to Plan B, what we're going to do in light of that. So taking steps to preserve and protect some assets in advance, one, will ensure the ability to maintain the house. And, of course, the other reason people should be doing some steps in advance is you want to maintain your dignity. You don't want to be broke. You don't want to call your daughter, or you talk to your daughter and say, when your granddaughter has a new baby, that you're totally broke and you can't give a gift for your new great-grandchild. You don't want to ask your daughter to give a gift and say it was from you. You want to have your dignity and say to your daughter, how much of my money are you still holding on to? Because I want to give my granddaughter and new great-granddaughter a baby gift. How much of my money do you have? These are important things.
But one thing I want to say as you're talking is these are many, many questions that, and you're just touching on just a few. So many questions, and one question leads to another question, and I've had, my family has used Joe KARP for so many years, and we've always had questions answered, but there's still more questions. As Joe said at the beginning of the show, things change. That's probably the title, and I know you've had a column on this, but yes, things change almost every day. As he said, people die, people get married, people get divorced, something happens, someone isn't, and they're in your will, and you shouldn't have them in your will anymore, and there's just so many complications. So, Joe, when people come to your seminars, do you have a particular topic, or then do you open it up for questions in general?
So I do my seminar. The first portion of the seminar talks about traditional estate planning that people do, talking about the consequences will happen if they do that, if they don't do that, or if they do that, what are the consequences? How people can utilize a living trust to avoid some of those negative consequences. What's important about what documents say. And then we break and we give people an opportunity to stretch their legs, to make an appointment with us. And then we come back and we talk about long-term care in Florida, Medicaid laws and VA laws. And then we do a Q&A for about 5 or 7 minutes because they're being offered an opportunity for a consultation. Now, some of them will decide they don't need it or don't want it, so they'll ask a question. Other people benefit from it. And then we go home. But that's already 1:30 to probably 4:15 or 4:20 sometimes. I've been there till 5 because people have had questions and I've had time. I don't always have time after the seminars to hang around. I may have another obligation. So it goes like that. But there's so many issues that we see that people face and so many things that they've never thought of. It's sort of like when you're entertaining your family for Thanksgiving. Most of us, when we have people over for dinner or Thanksgiving, write a little list of everything we're putting out on the table, not forks and knives, but my favorite line my brothers and I still share about my mother is after we had dinner and people over and everything was over and it was time for dessert, my mother looked up and said, I forgot the pickles. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't want to forget the pickles. You want to have that on the list. So we try to give people information so they say, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't know that. I have younger couples that all of a sudden they realize that they don't have the ability, and I don't mean to scare them, but when you're 18, you're an adult, and that means you have all your privacy rights for medical. and I'll say, do you have a healthcare surrogate for your daughter who's off in college? No, why do I need that? I'm her mother. Well, because no doctor will talk to you because she's 19 years old. Oh, my God. And I joke if there's a husband there, I'll say, your biggest problem is not going to be that. It's just whether you have enough money for the bail bondsman when your wife rips the emergency room's nurse's veins out of her neck saying, tell me about my daughter. I said,
Yeah.
you really need things. And people don't think about things that they need. How many people check their spare tire to see if it has air
True.
in it?
Well,
Okay.
we're gonna run out of time here, and I want to just tell you thank you so much for everything you do for everybody, Joe. We appreciate it, and hopefully we will talk to you. You'll be safe and sound during this wonderful holiday period, and all our listeners will go to your seminar. We really appreciate your being on our show this morning. Thank you,
Well,
Joe.
thank you, and have a happy and healthy New Year and good holidays to all.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you so much, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.